Hello everyone, this is Donnie aka Elevated with Dota Alchemy, and thank you for tuning in again today. And thank you for all of the support that we've been getting, the messages, the Patreon support, the subscriptions here on YouTube. Jenkins and I are overwhelmed with how awesome 2019 has started off, and we cannot wait for the MMR reset, for Mars to come out, and for all the content that's going to come with it. So we hope that you guys continue to enjoy this journey with us. So let's get into the video, which is going to be 5 things you need to start doing in the first 5 minutes of every Dota game. Number 1, rush to the lanes. Getting to the lane early and placing a ward from an undetectable location allows you to get a massive head start on winning the vision game. Not only does an early ward give you early information about who's laning where, but it also lets you see how much regen each hero in the lane has. This is one of the most important things to note because it will help you identify which hero to prioritize harassing first. Finally, if you're able to catch the other team warding, it gives you a free D-ward and means they likely will not have another ward in that lane for several minutes. This allows you to surprise your opponents with harass from the fog, or you can go side pull the lane without being spotted, or you can even rotate to another lane undetected if your current lane doesn't need any help. And this isn't just for supports. If you are a core, you should also try to get to the lane early with your body so that you can catch the enemy supports potentially placing a ward. So if you're a hero like an Earth Spirit, for example, or one of those fast moving heroes like an Enchantress or a Skywrath Mage, you have an extra advantage in getting this early ward down or scouting out the other team placing this early ward. Number 2, play the entire game out in your head briefly, and just think about your general plan for how you want to approach the game. Planning how you think the game is going to go is one of the absolute best ways to be efficient because it allows you to potentially figure out where you should be, when you should be there, and why you should do that particular move. You can't always reliably predict every single move that the opposing team will make, but you can think of things like power spikes and important item choices and which heroes cause your team the most problems at various stages of the game. In the particular replay we're looking at right now, there's a TA mid, and that's a hero that at level 6 generally places traps, so preemptively placing a sentry ward mid before the TA is about to hit level 6 is a good way to counter that power spike, for example. Recognizing that this is a game where the enemy Storm Spirit can easily rush an Orchid because his lane matchup is easy or your team doesn't have any reliable catch for him will allow you to prioritize a defensive item like Manta Style or Yules instead of something more aggressive or farm oriented. This might seem like a pretty small thing, but it's actually the difference between that Storm Spirit controlling the entire map and snowballing out of control, or just buying a very cost-inefficient mana regeneration item if you already have the defensive tool in place. Recognize which heroes are countered by the draft and which heroes you will need to be countering with items and playstyle. Number 3, check the inventories of all of your teammates and all of your opponents. You can predict with a high amount of accuracy which lanes will win and which lanes will lose in the first 5 seconds of the laning phase by simply checking the inventories and noting how much regen and knowing the general hero matchups. Knowing which lanes will have the most problems will also allow you to make smart rotations to help them out and avoid allowing the other team to freely snowball that advantage. Some lanes are meant to lose, but come back in the mid game. However, if you let that difficult lane go completely uncontested, then it will spill over to affect the rest of the game. Making a timely gank with the first or second power rune could entirely change the regen advantage of the lane or significantly stunt the snowball of a lane dominating hero matchup. There will of course be a small amount of variance for when someone outplays a matchup. Still, having a general idea of what the lanes are going to look like within the first few seconds of the game is super valuable, and you can also ping out to your team by alt-clicking on specific items if you notice something weird or if a hero has too little or too much regen. Number 4, try to get as much experience as possible. We made a video a while back called Roaming is Dead, and it got a ton of hate from the viewers. Most of this was due to the terminology, but the core truth of that video remains true today. If you spend the majority of your time out of experience range from creeps dying because you're walking from one lane to another or getting completely zoned out, you're going to have a miserable game. Level 6 is an incredibly important milestone for most heroes in Dota, and something that every core and every support should be trying to reach as soon as possible. This one especially goes out to support players who can often find themselves 4 or 5 levels below their mid laner by 10 to 12 minutes if they're spending too much time in between lanes. Even having one extra level on your nuke or disable spell can be a huge difference maker when trying to secure an important kill as you start to push towers. The supports and the carry should work together to control the creep wave equilibrium, denying the other team farm, pulling when necessary, and just generally trying to maximize the amount of golden experience that they can gain in those first 5 minutes. There are a few caveats to this rule, which is that if the lane is too difficult for the support to really have any impact there, then oftentimes it's better to just leave the lane, go somewhere else, maybe stack in the jungle, maybe yank another lane, and allow the carry to simply get his solo experience, and then the support will eventually catch up through fights later on. The other example is if the lane is way too easy and the carry doesn't need any help, then the support should make a rotation to one of the other lanes and positively influence that one. And number 5 is to set up early for the first bounty rune spawn. The change to the 5-minute bounty runes has created a huge dynamic of early fighting in most games. Though the runes give a relatively small amount of gold to each hero, the overall impact of getting 3 or 4 of them at 5 minutes is a sizable gold swing for the entire team. Additionally, it can be a pretty serious hit to team morale if you are in a tough laning stage and see the other team snag all 4 runes with an alchemist on the team, for example. Players are getting better and better at making the runes priority number 1 at 5 minutes, and this often leads to skirmishes or even full-on team fights. Making sure that you have a good amount of resources in form of HP, mana, vision, detection if necessary, in the seconds leading up to the bounty rune spawn can massively impact the rest of the laning phase and thus the game with the extra gold or an early team fight win. This is also a great opportunity for a support from one side lane to reinforce one of the other side lanes, take a fight, and then claim the bounty runes as a result of that fight. We've been hearing this a lot, that lanes are all that really matters, and while it's not necessarily true, the foundation of a good Dota game starts in the first 5 minutes. And so if you can set up your team with winning lanes and claim those early bounty runes and make sure that you have a good laning stage, you're often going to have a good game. And a good game for your whole team generally equals a good win. So thank you so much for tuning in. We genuinely really do appreciate your time spent with us here at Dota Alchemy. And good luck, have fun in your games, and we'll see you in the next video.